This video is brought to you by Green Man Gaming, who are celebrating their 12th birthday with an absolutely massive sale. Tons of huge discounts just a click away, so check the link in the description or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers! I know I'm using this intro block as a running commentary on the Halo TV show, but you'll have to indulge me at least once more, because our boy Master Chief got his cherry popped! That's right, boys, old John Halo made an orbital drop straight into a Covenant hangar. We may not get to see Sergeant Johnson this season, but at least we can take comfort in knowing that the Covenant got to meet a Johnson. And remember, he knows what the ladies like. Alright, it's all done. It's out of my system. Let's talk about some gaming news. It was a pretty big week, what with, Starfield getting a bump, Nintendo talking about their hopes and dreams for the next Nintendo Switch, and Silent Hill leaks galore. Plus, did you guys see that Gotham Knights gameplay? Yeah, we'll talk about that one. Alright, let's do it. Here comes the news block. Let's kick things off with that delay news that shook the industry. Starfield and Redfall got delayed into 2023. The most shocking thing about this announcement was that Redfall was scheduled for this year? What the fuck? Ain't no way. For real, I don't think anyone expected Arcane's next game to ship this year, given the deathly silence surrounding it, so I think we can just file this one as pretty unremarkable news. Starfield, on the other hand, that's a big deal, and it hurts for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, Starfield was the Xbox game releasing in 2022, and I mean, it was the only first-party Xbox game releasing in 2022. With that gone, there is now a massive gap in Xbox's holiday lineup, which hurts holiday sales since big games attract consumers during that critical holiday shopping window when they're considering buying a console as a gift for a husband, a girlfriend, or for little Timmy. It's natural to think comparatively about this stuff and say, well, Sony's gonna have God of War Ragnarok, and now Xbox has nothing. But let's be clear, pretty much everyone is certain that God of War Ragnarok is also gonna get delayed, so I certainly wouldn't count on that being on shelves come Christmas time. Nintendo isn't really competing with either Microsoft or Sony, but they have a very strong year-end lineup, what with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Splatoon 3, Fire Emblem Warriors, and some new Pokemon games coming. Nintendo fans are eating well in 2022, Xbox and Sony ponies not so much. All of this created a bit of a hubbub online about the management of Xbox and how they've really dropped the ball and how Phil Spencer is really bad at his job. Bitch please, Xbox was literally the highest rated publisher of 2021. That is a fact. Game Pass is absurdly good value and continues to deliver month after month. Xbox has invested in an impressive stable of studios who are all making cool shit like Psychonauts and Forza and Hellblade 2 and Grounded and tons more. That's setting aside the heavy-hitting studios like id Software, Arcane, Bethesda, not to mention the soon-to-be acquired Activision Blizzard. It's not perfect, of course, and I agree that it sucks there are no first-party Xbox games in 2022, at least not yet. But let's not lose sight of the big picture here. Xbox is doing well, and they're positioned well for the future, and I'm glad that they're led by someone who is willing to delay video games rather than push them out before they're ready. It's a good thing too, because according to Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, Starfield was in really rough shape as of early last year. Quote, last spring before E3, I spoke to some folks on Starfield who were extremely worried about committing to an 11/11/22 date based on the progress they'd made so far. Next Cyberpunk was the term floated. Good on Bethesda for delaying even after announcing that specific date, end quote. As big as that delay news was, this was the real story surrounding Starfield this week. As after Fallout 76, I think it's pretty crazy that Bethesda would commit to any date unless they were 1000% certain that they would hit it, and I think it's especially crazy that actual Starfield developers would liken their own game to Cyberpunk when talking about its potential readiness at the target release date to Jason Schreier of all people. Like, you know what you're doing when you say that to a journalist like Jason Schreier. He's gonna say it, like, publicly. So yeah, I think obviously the game was in a pretty rough spot. You'd think that after the industry's shaking catastrophe that was 76, Bethesda would be a lot more gun-shy about committing to a release date, but apparently not. So yeah, I agree. It's good that Starfield has been delayed because we want it to be good, but many years on, we still haven't seen any gameplay or received any concrete details about how it plays. So I'm pretty cool on this one until we see something real. Hopefully the Xbox showcase on June 12th delivers. In other Xbox news, a crippling outage this week has highlighted Microsoft's inconsistent approach to game preservation. The outage affected Xbox's storefront and back-end servers, meaning that people couldn't buy new games or in many cases, play the games they've already purchased. Turns out that even offline single-player games have have a DRM check requiring Xbox's service to validate the game license before you boot it up. It's a check that doesn't exist for Sony or Nintendo games, so Xbox fans were rightly pissed off to A, learn this exists, and B, experience the effects of it firsthand. It's a policy that's very inconsistent with Xbox's stated commitment to game preservation and backwards compatibility, since you can't be in favor of all that stuff while also requiring DRM checks for every game on your marketplace. Service has been restored now, but it's only a matter of time until this sort of thing happens again, so watch this space. Final piece of Xbox news is that Gears of War might be getting the Master Chief Collection treatment. Not the first time we've heard this rumor, to be honest, but it keeps resurfacing, and often where there's smoke, there's fire. Nick Baker of the Xbox Era podcast spoke about this collection in the past, and he provided some further commentary on it this week, saying, quote, "A while back I said there is another Microsoft franchise that is getting the Master Chief Collection type treatment. I'm of the belief that it's coming this year," end quote. If that's true, it'll almost certainly be revealed at the Xbox Showcase in June, so stay tuned. Let's do some Sony pony news now, and overnight Sony revealed some of the games headed to their revised PS Plus program, as well as some new details about how they'll be handling back catalogue purchases. As a quick refresher, the new PS Plus has 3 tiers: a base tier that gives you access to online multiplayer, cloud saves, and some free games each month, so what you already have now. There's an extra tier that gives you access to a back catalogue of PS4 and PS5 titles, and a premium tier which gives you access to a collection of classic games through both local download and cloud streaming, as well as timed game trials, which are basically demos. So, what's in the mix for the extra and premium tiers? Well, it's important to remember that this isn't all games, but there's still plenty to be excited about here. Demon's Souls, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Spider-Man Miles, Returnal, the Uncharted Collection, Wipeout Omega Collection, and that's just some of the first-party stuff. Third party, we've got Control, Final Fantasy 15, Guardians of the Galaxy, Outer Wilds, Red Dead 2, and Hollow Knight. It's a solid cross-section of games, not bad at all. It's when we get to the classic games collection that things get a lot more dicey. It's a really lean collection of PS1 and PSP games, and it's like, these games aren't selling for big dollars now, so it surely wouldn't have been that pricey to fatten this library out. The PS3 lineup is a little chunkier, featuring stuff like the original Demon's Souls, Infamous, Ico, Ratchet & Clank, Devil May Cry, and Fear, but it's missing a lot of other stuff. I mean, Metal Gear 4 isn't in there. That's like the one game that everyone really wanted to see on this service, and it's not there. So some other important details around all of this. New games will, of course, be cycled in and out of this service over time, so this is just a starting point. The classic games, some of them will benefit from higher frame rates and resolutions, which is very nice. Most impressively, select PS1 and PSP games that people have previously purchased digitally will be available to download for both PS4 and PS5, meaning that you won't need to subscribe to this service if you don't want to. You can just buy those games on Sony Storefront, and that's awesome. Finally, the service also includes the newly announced Ubisoft Plus Classic, which is a stripped-down version of Ubisoft's current subscription service. This package includes 27 Ubisoft titles, including Assassin's Creed Valhalla and The Division and some other ones, so that's pretty cool. Response to this lineup is pretty mixed. The classic games have really bummed people out, but the PS4 and 5 lineup looks pretty solid. For me personally, as I've said in the past, I'm already pretty well serviced by Game Pass, and nothing here really jumps out at me as a strong reason to bump up my sub, especially given that I live in Australia and the premium tier is basically non-existent for me since Sony don't do any cloud streaming here yet. So yeah, I definitely don't think this is trash, which certainly a lot of people think that for some reason. I don't agree. I think this is great value for those who don't have a PC or an Xbox. Hundreds of newish and back catalog games for $15 or $20 a month? That's awesome value. But like I said, it's just not something that I personally want or need right now. To be honest, I'm more excited that they're now selling PS1 and PSP games again, and they're going to be playable on PS4 and PS5. That's fantastic news, and I definitely plan to take a much closer look at that over the coming weeks and months. Capping off console manufacturer news, Nintendo held an indie showcase this week. It began by mentioning Australia, and everyone was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's happening. We're finally getting a release for Silksong, here we go. Of course, we were all that Hollow Knight clown JPEG by the end of the night, because it turns out that the Aussie title was, in fact, Wayward Strand, a narrative point-and-click adventure game that's essentially a video game adaptation of a country practice. If you get that reference, you are both old and Australian. Outside of this, there was a few nice things that they showed off. I'm a sucker for rhythm games, so Soundfall definitely piqued my interest. That's out now, by the way. Gunbrella is the next thing from Devolver Digital. Really like the art style on that one. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator was announced for the Switch, arriving northern summer, and I don't know about you, but I think these dudes stole the show.
Souls-likes are known for their difficulty, and we want to create a game that maintains that challenge while being approachable for new fans of the genre.
Ooh, what if you died in one hit when you're not wearing a shell?
I just said it's supposed to be approachable.
Oh, what if every time you dodge roll, there's like a 1% chance that you just trip and fall over?
Well, looks like our segment's over, everyone.
These lads are Aggro Crab, and they're showing off their crab theme Souls-like, Another Crab's Treasure, a punishing third-person melee combat game where you play as a crab in search of a shell, and you have to make do with whatever trash you find lying around. Love the look of this, it's out sometime next year. The Switch has been an absolute game changer for Nintendo, returning them to center stage after the disaster that was the Wii U. With their latest handheld console hybrid getting a little long in the tooth now, attention is turning to what might eventually replace it. Speaking during an investor Q&A session this week, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa gave some insight into where Nintendo's head's at. Quote, "The question of whether we will be able to just as smoothly transition from the Nintendo Switch to the next generation of hardware is a major focus for us. Based on our experiences with the Wii, Nintendo DS, and other hardware, it's very clear that one of the major obstacles is how to easily transition from one hardware to the next. To help alleviate this risk, we're focusing on building long-term relationships with our customers. While we will continue launching new software on the Nintendo Switch, we will also provide services that also use Nintendo accounts and other IPs outside of gaming software. We intend for this to help build a lasting impact with our customers," end quote. It's always impossible to divine any meaning from the mercurial Big N's public pronouncements, but it's nice to imagine a world in which Nintendo offers a permanent digital library and backwards compatibility for their titles. Right now, the Nintendo emulation scene is massive because Nintendo has never made any efforts to preserve their games or make them playable on new platforms other than expensive remasters. So Nintendo are leaving a lot of money on the table there. Hopefully the Switch 2, whatever it ends up being, doesn't repeat these mistakes and offers a path to long-term ownership of titles, but it's Nintendo we're talking about here, so probably not. For literally decades now, we've all been begging Konami to do something, anything with the Silent Hill franchise. Kendrick Lamar put out a new Silent Hill before Konami did. Pretty topical reference, huh? I'm pretty proud of that one. This week, though, our cup runneth over with Silent Hill leaks as Konami scrambles to put the lid back on them. We've known for a long time now that Konami had a number of studios working on different Silent Hill projects. The one we've officially known about, sort of, is one currently led by Bloober Team, makers of The Medium. Video Game Chronicle claimed to have the inside track on that one, saying that it's actually a Silent Hill 2 remake. Quote, "It's claimed that the remake will feature reworked AI, animations, puzzles, and several new endings, and potentially release as a timed exclusive on PlayStation consoles," end quote. In addition to that, it's rumored that we can expect some Silent Hill offshoot projects, sort of like stories set in the Silent Hill universe. This week, a handful of screenshots were leaked online, but were quickly DMCA'd by Konami, confirming their authenticity. I can't show you them here, obviously, or my channel will suffer the same fate, but they do show off a very different art style than the series has previously known, and later reporting would suggest that these screenshots were from one of those offshoot projects. Finally, Video Game Chronicle are also reporting that a new mainline numbered Silent Hill game is currently in development at a Japanese studio, but there's no word on which studio that is yet. Unsurprising, given that we'd certainly heard this rumor before, but it's nice to hear it again. Hopefully this is being outsourced, because I don't trust Konami themselves to make anything good at this point. With the Summer Games Fest coming up soon, hopefully we get some sort of announcement or teaser, but that does feel a little optimistic. For now, we'll just have to settle for leaks and DMCA'd screenshots. Don't worry, just Google them, you'll find them in no time. Turning now from one primeval to the next, EA. Big week for them, massive in fact. It all started this week with the confirmation that they were ditching the FIFA brand for their football, aka soccer games, and were rebranding it EA Sports FC. EA put out a statement announcing the move, saying, quote, "Next year, EA Sports FC will become the future of football from EA Sports. Alongside our 300 plus licensed partners across the sport, we're ready to take global football experiences to new heights on behalf of all football fans around the world," end quote. This is a move a long time coming. For over a year now, EA have been hinting that they would walk away if FIFA's licensing costs weren't significantly reduced, with the publisher spending billions to keep football's governing body happy. Andy Wilson clearly had jack of it, walking away from the deal and leaving the FIFA bosses none too happy. How unhappy? Well, in a strongly worded missive, FIFA boss Gianni Infantino lived up to his name when he said, quote, "I can assure you that the only authentic, real game that has the FIFA name will be the best one available for gamers and football fans. The FIFA name is the only global original title. FIFA 23, FIFA 24, FIFA 25, and FIFA 26, and so on. The constant is the FIFA name, and it will remain forever and remain the best." End quote. Those were his caps, by the way, not mine. It really sounds like the FIFA boss was basically saying, we're gonna make our own FIFA game with blackjack and hookers. I mean, I don't know this dude, but there is absolutely no way in hell that he knows the first thing about video games when he just starts spouting off that there's gonna be some studio out there ready to make a high quality football game in time for FIFA 23 or 24. Or 25 for that matter. It's going to be very funny to watch him try though. For a while now, VentureBeat has been assuring us that there's a new Need for Speed game coming later this year. We didn't get confirmation of that today, but we did get some insight into who's working on it. We already knew that Criterion was helming the project, and this week we learned that Codemasters Cheshire Studio would be merged into Criterion to deliver the next installment. EA acquired Codemasters recently, so this sort of reshuffling is to be expected. No more specifics on this new Need for Speed game yet, but we'll likely hear something more about it soon. The other game that VentureBeat have been talking about for a while now is the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. Speaking during his Grub Snacks podcast, Jeff Grubb claims that the title will be called Jedi Survivor, that it will be out in 2023, and that it will be exclusive to current-gen consoles, so PS5 and Xbox Series. Grubb said that EA Respawn were targeting a 2022 release, but things have slipped. Personally, I'm very keen for this one. The first one wasn't perfect, but I liked a lot of what it was doing, and if Respawn can tighten the screws a bit, I think we're in for a good time. Filling out EA's upcoming slate is the Dead Space remake, which was earlier delayed by an indefinite period of time. That period is a lot more definite now, since this week EA locked in a release date, which is the 27th of Jan next year, making me fearful that every game planned for 2022 is going to be pushed into late Jan/February once again, meaning that I will go another 40 days and 40 nights without rest. Like Moses, only with pants. That's a lie, I work from home. Pants are very optional in my line of work. One more release date we got from EA was for Apex Legends Mobile, which is out right now, or very soon at least. EA confirmed that it would be dropping for both iOS and Android on the 17th, so if it isn't already live in your region, then be sure to check back in a few hours, and it almost certainly will be. It's looking pretty cool, by the way. EA had one more mobile title up their sleeve, and it came from the most unlikely franchise, The Lord of the Rings. EA announced that they were partnering with Middle-earth Enterprises to develop a new mobile-based RPG, describing it like this, quote, "The Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth is a collectible role-playing game that brings the fantasy and adventure of The Lord of the Rings to existing fans and new audiences alike in a strategic, social, competitive experience," end quote. What does this translate to? I don't know, but it's definitely going to have loot boxes, okay? That is a fact. A testing beta is planned for certain regions in Northern Summer, which means we can expect a release either later this year or early next year. Alright, let's talk about that Gotham Knights gameplay. Okay, so in case you didn't know, Warner Brothers released 12 minutes of freshly minted Gotham Knights gameplay this week, and it left people very whelmed. I mean, like ratios aren't the be-all and end-all, but a 50-50 spread on a video with over 700,000 views is never a good sign. I gotta say, I think it looks pretty good, but there are definitely some question marks around this one. Like, for example, I kind of think Arkham Knight from like 7 years ago looks better than this, at least artistically. I mean, even technically, it doesn't look like 7 years worth of progress has been made from Arkham Knight to Gotham Knights. The combat is the big issue though. It just looks a little floaty, a little slidey. It just lacks that satisfying crunch that Arkham games had in spades. And the UI, man, I really hope this shit is placeholder, because this looks like a UI is my passion meme template right here. The Arkham games did leave some very big shoes to fill, and so Gotham Knights is certainly up against it, trying to do so. At the same time, I do think this looks fun, especially given that it's co-op. This gameplay footage has helped me set the right expectations. I'm expecting a simple superhero brawler with the Bat Crew. I'm not expecting a masterpiece, so if this ends up being just okay, then that's fair enough. But yeah, please, fix this UI. I cannot look at it. It burns. A few quick bits to wrap up the news block. This week, Activision announced that Call of Duty Mobile has been downloaded 650 million times. For comparison's sake, Resident Evil Village, one of the highest rated games of 2021, sold 6 million copies. And we're all like, hey, that's pretty good. a reminder of just how monumentally mammoth the mobile gaming market is. No surprises then that Activision have just announced that they're working on another Call of Duty mobile game, except this time it's a battle royale. Right now it's called Project Aurora. It's in closed testing at the moment, but you can't sign up, though invites and sign-ups will roll out over the coming weeks and months. Finally, while we're on the topic of COD, the internet rejoiced this week when it was revealed that Elden Ring had outsold the latest mainline Call of Duty game. According to the NPD group, Elden Ring sold more copies in the US than the poorly received, poorly performing Call of Duty Vanguard. A milestone achievement given the fact that even bad Call of Duty games still sell in excess of 12 million units. Hard to believe that a Souls-like would achieve that sort of cut-through in the market, but you absolutely love to see it. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, it was leaked earlier, but this week it's been confirmed. We're getting Lego Smash, officially unveiled this week in a reveal trailer. This game is pretty much what we were all expecting it to be. Build your own Lego fighter drawn from across the Lego universe. It looks okay, but it'll be a test to see how much room there is in this genre, since we've already got Smash, we've got Nickelodeon's All-Star Brawl, then we'll soon have Multiverses, which will be free to play by the way. A lot of competition to cut through, so hopefully Lego Brawls can find an audience. It's coming to all platforms sometime in Northern Summer. Speaking of good times, check this out.
敵の個体が増加一掃するターゲットロックオン守護陣よし発射出力全開
Can you hear that? That is the sound of a million weeb credit cards crying out in terror, for this is Zenless Zone Zero, the next game from MiHoYo, makers of the absurdly successful Genshin Impact. Since launching 18 months ago, Genshin has generated roughly $3 billion in revenue, or approximately 1/4 of Facebook VR spend. It's no surprise then that the excitement for their next game is through the roof, and to be fair, it does look pretty cool. I mean, if they just did Genshin again, but put it in a setting that looked like Jet Set Radio, then yeah, I'd bite. As with Genshin, Zenless Zone Zero is headed to consoles, PC and mobile. There's no date for this one yet. It might ship this year, but if I were a betting man, I'd wager that we'll see a bunch of beta tests this year targeting a 2023 release. But that's a total guess, so don't quote me on that. One semi-announcement that I was pretty keen to read was that they are making a Dune survival game. And when I say Dune, I of course mean Dune, for my American friends out there. This is from Funcom, who have done a boatload of stuff in the past, but their most relevant work in this context is Conan Exiles, which is still doing okay apparently, it's still getting updates. The Dune survival game was revealed with very little ceremony. It was just a tweet announcing the game. And that's a lie, because it was just a tweet with a big help wanted sign for the project, listing a whole bunch of positions the studio is hiring for and showing off a single piece of key art. Some dude with the hook in hand, ready to make a sexy time with an approaching sandworm. The idea of a Dune survival game feels like a bit of a match made in heaven, so I'm keen for this one. No date yet, but given that it hasn't even been announced, I'm not expecting it any time before 2024 at the earliest. Deliver Us the Moon was a narrative-led game that released back in 2019 to great reviews. This week the developer announced that a next-gen version is on the way, touching down June 23rd for both PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. No word if this is headed to Game Pass yet, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised. Ubisoft's release schedule is looking as crooked as a question mark, which is fitting since we kind of don't know when most of the publishers' next slate of titles will hit. Ubisoft did tighten the view on a few of these games though, confirming that we can expect Massive's Avatar game, the Mario Rabbids sequel, and the beleaguered Skull and Bones to all arrive by March of next year. I'm going to tell you that I'm pretty sure Mario Rabbids ships by then. The other two, I'm not so sure. It could be that Ubi are setting aspirational targets to please skittish investors while they hunt for private equity funding. That's my bet, but I guess we'll find out soon-ish. Finally, the only delay announcement this week was for some Dying Light 2 DLC. It was meant to be coming in Northern Summer, but has now slipped into September of this year, with developer Techland saying they needed more time. Fair enough. The game will still get a nice update in June though, featuring some new content, events, etc. All of this is in line with Techland's promise of 5 years worth of support for the title, which is a lot, but totally believable, since they did exactly the same thing with the previous game as well, and in fact that's still getting updates. If you're interested in Dying Light 2 and want to learn more, I'll leave a link to my review below the like button. So what came out last week? Well, kicking things off is We Were Here Forever, which launched on PC. The console ports are coming later. This is a co-op puzzle game, not unlike It Takes Two, only with a lot less production value. Reviews for it are pretty good. It currently sits at a very respectable 85%, very positive on Steam. Critics are a little cooler on it, with it sitting at a fair 73 on OpenCritic. Mitchell Saltzman of IGN scored an 8 out of 10, saying, quote, "If you've got a like-minded friend who loves puzzles and escape rooms as much as you do, We Were Here Forever is a very special game with a 12-hour co-op campaign full of the most clever puzzles around," end quote. On the other end of the spectrum, Well Played scored it a 6.5, saying, quote, "We Were Here Forever is a fun, cooperative puzzling experience that unfortunately outstays its welcome with a bloated runtime and an infuriating amount of backtracking," end quote. Eiyuden Chronicles Rising is the 2D JRPG prelude to the upcoming Suikoden spiritual successor. Much like We Were Here Forever, Eiyuden Chronicles has done much better with fans than it has with critics. It's sitting at 86% very positive on Steam, while critics have it at a fair 72 on OpenCritic. GameSpot scored it a 7, saying, quote, "While Eiyuden Chronicles Rising is nothing novel, it's a charming and enjoyable experience," end quote. Push Square were less cheery, scoring it a 6 and saying, quote, "If you can stomach its disappointingly dull quests, Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is a solid enough action RPG," end quote. A reminder that this one is available on Game Pass for both PC and Xbox, so you can check this one out for yourself pretty easily. Salt and Sacrifice is the sequel to the tough as nails 2D Souls-like. Lots of hype for this one for anyone in the know, but it seems as though the sequel hasn't quite captured the magic of the first game, sitting at a strong 77 on OpenCritic, below the 83 that Salt and Sanctuary garnered. Reviews are also less effusive than for the predecessor. The IGN one's a good example. They scored it a 7 and said, quote, "Salt and Sacrifice is an ambitious sequel that attempts to integrate monster hunter mechanics into an already crowded Metroidvania Souls-like formula. It's not a great mix, but the strength of its core combat, customization, and refreshing co-op still make it worth at least a look," end quote. Songs of Conquest is one that I shouted out a few weeks back in my Put This On Your Radar segment. This one launched into early access this week, and I'm delighted to see that almost everyone loves it. If you haven't been following it, it's a spiritual successor to one of my favorite ever video games, Heroes of Might and Magic. It introduces a heap of new ideas, it looks gorgeous, just a great package that's not only sitting at 87% very positive on Steam, but also has just as much positive buzz out there across Reddit and Twitter and places like that. It's like $30 and it seems like it's worth every penny even in its early access state. And finally, Evil Dead the video game released on all platforms bar the Switch on Friday the 13th, and you'll be forgiven for not knowing that it even came out. Not a whole lot of marketing behind this one, and in addition, the publisher didn't do a pre-release review window, meaning that no one reviewed it? At the time of writing, there are 5 reviews on OpenCritic, none of them from a major outlet. I know some outlets are working on reviews right now, but I know a lot aren't. It's also exclusive to the Epic Games Store for PC, so it's hard to know what people think of it since there aren't any reviews on that storefront. Yeah, I think given the lack of marketing and limited release for this one, a review cycle might have really helped put some eyeballs on it, so it's a shame the publisher didn't make that happen. Either way, I might circle back on this one next week when a few more reviews have trickled out. So what's coming out this week? A quiet week this week, and another Epic exclusive leads the charge, Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song. This game is headed to all consoles, including the Switch, which I'm a bit surprised about actually. It arrives on the 19th, it's a more narrative-led take on the Vampire the Masquerade universe. It's essentially a detective game where you play as one of 3 vampire protagonists, chatting with people, choosing dialogue prompts, leveling up perks to aid you in your powers of stealth, deduction, or intimidation. To be honest, it looks kinda cool. I haven't heard too much about this one, as I don't think there's been a lot of marketing pump behind it, but yeah, I'll try to find some time for it if the reviews come in solid. Deadcraft is a little indie game that aims to offer its own unique spin on the zombie survival genre. Here, you're half zombie, and that allows you to recruit and deploy zombies as your personal undead army. Kind of a cool concept. It's out on May 20th, exclusive to PC. Finally, Dolmen arrives for all platforms bar the Switch on the 20th as well. This one's been on my radar for a while now since it's a sci-fi Souls-like, and I really love the Surge, so I'm keen to see more of that sort of stuff. I've watched some gameplay for this one. It definitely looks a lot more budget than the Surge, but that's okay. It's a smaller team putting out their first game. I wish them well, and I'll be checking this out sometime next week. Put this on your radar. On more than one occasion, I've spoken about the lack of RTS games hitting the market these days, so I was very keen to chance upon Rogue Command, which looks pretty simple in terms of presentation, but the simplistic veneer is hiding some clever thinking under the hood. Rogue Command aims to take the RTS genre, which isn't exactly firing on all cylinders at the moment, and combine that with roguelike elements, a style of gameplay that is definitely doing the rounds right now. Rather than set economy and progression trees, randomly drawn cards will determine the units at your disposal, and I love that idea, since I was absolutely someone who memorized a set build order and then just tried to recreate it as quickly as possible every time. It's always interesting to see how roguelike design thinking can change or evolve a game. Hell, I'd argue that Battle Royale games are basically roguelike arena shooters. That's a separate video though. This one is about Rogue Command. It's in development right now from Fennec. There's a demo you can play right now. They're launching into early access sometime soon. As always, the best thing you can do to support indie devs is A, buy their shit, or B, wishlist it. I'll leave a link to the Steam page below. Sort of free stuff time now, and there is literally nothing to talk about this week. Well, that's not quite true. Epic have dished out a surprise bumper crop this week. Last week we knew that Jotun Valhalla Edition and Prey would be free on the storefront, but we didn't know that Redout Enhanced Edition would also be making its way there. This is well timed since Redout 2 is about to release at the end of the month, so clearly this is an effort to whet our appetite for high-octane, wide color spectrum, electronica-fueled chicanery, and I'm totally okay with that when the price tag is a big fat zero. Grab that super fast though, because all three of these games will disappear on the 20th, at which point a new game is up, but we don't know which one that is yet. Epic are remaining uncharacteristically tight-lipped about this one, so hopefully it's something juicy. Our feel-good story for the week is pretty wholesome. I love it. Full credit for this one goes to automatonmedia.com, so be sure to give them a click for this fine reporting. I'll leave a link below the like button. This article in question is titled, "One Japanese developer's Hamster games have sold so well they established a Hamster department." And immediately, I'm here like Richard Gere. Let's go. The developer in question is one by the name of Success. Perfect name, by the way. And they were founded back in 1978 by this dude. Look at this badass photo. Even at his age, he could still kick your ass if he wanted to. Anyway, Success is mainly a contract game developer, meaning that they help other developers finalize and ship their products. Along the way, though, they've done a few of their own things, and on May 10th, they added their Hamster department to their studio. Quote, "The Hamster department is made up of hamster-loving staff that will focus on offering hamster-themed games and content," end quote. What a banging quote, I absolutely love that. Automaton Media naturally wanted to learn more about this mysterious hamster department, so they reached out to Success. Here's what they learned. Quote, "First, the hamster department isn't an actual department as far as a corporate structure, but more of an internal club within the company. However, the aim is for it to grow into a legitimate department in the future. Currently, the hamster department is made up of 18 members across a wide age range of members in their 20s to their 50s. Success has a lot of animal lovers among its staff, with the Welcome to the Sheep Village team even having gone to the zoo together," end quote. Did I not tell you this story was wholesome? The article would go on to say that the studio has had a number of hidden hamster gems, one of them a mobile game downloaded 450,000 times. There are currently multiple hamster-related projects in development at the studio, and the article concludes by saying, quote, "This sounds like good news for hamster-loving gamers out there," end quote. Yes, it certainly does. Ladies and gentlemen, if you missed it, I just did some deep dive impressions of the newly released V Rising. It's a vampire-themed survival game, and it totally rules. I dumped a whole bunch of hours into it over the past week, and I can't wait to dump a whole bunch more now that the early access is out. Link to that video below the like button, and while we're on the topic of the like button, have you smashed the like button yet? If you haven't, then this is the last chance you're gonna get before the video wraps. Same goes for your chance to subscribe and ding the notification bell. I'm actually taking a few days off now. My first trip away since COVID began 2.5 years ago. I'm looking forward to kicking back, but I will miss you guys, I always do. Take good care of yourselves, I'll see you on the flip side, and don't forget to check out this week's sponsor, Green Man Gaming. Happy birthday to Green Man Gaming. 12 years and still going strong, and for bloody good reason. These guys rock. If you haven't heard of Green Man before, then you have been missing out. I've been buying stuff from these guys for years because they always offer excellent prices on PC titles, but they're not a grey market key reseller. Every single key they sell has been sourced directly from the publisher themselves, so there's no scammy, stolen keys that end up getting cancelled weeks or months after you bought them. It's 100% legit, all the money goes directly to the publisher, and all the savings go directly to you. And these are some very chunky savings, by the way, so let me walk you through my sale picks, stuff I really recommend because the games are good and the price is certainly very, very right. We spoke earlier this episode about the Batman Arkham games, absolute masterpieces, every one of them, and they're all at least 81% off. The recent Lego game gets you in the mood. Pretty much every Lego game ever made is like 81% off here. Moving Out, a fantastic party co-op game that manages to transform something torturous into something fun, that's 79% off. How about Deus Ex Mankind Divided and Human Revolution? They're both 85% off. And one of my favorite games from last year, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, you can get the digital deluxe edition of that banger for 50% off. These are just the specials that are live right now, by the way. Green Man have told me that tons more stuff is going up on sale over the next few days, so it's really worth checking back each day to see what new discounts are popping up. Over 6 million gamers have purchased games from Green Man Gaming over the years. That's a lot of people. Green Man have over 9,000 games in their library. That's a lot of games. And a lot of those games are on sale right now. Our pile of shame can never be too high. Pile it sky high with Green Man Gaming's 12-year birthday sale by clicking the link in the description below. Thanks Green Man for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.